Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. Today I'm going to be making one of my favorite dishes for dinner, spaghetti and the marinara meat sauce. Um, Sometimes I'll make this with canned tomatoes and dried herbs, but I happen to have a bunch of fresh tomatoes in my fridge and some fresh basil and fresh oregano, so I'm going to make everything fresh from scratch. Take a little longer, but it's so good. So go over my ingredients real quick. It's pretty simple. Got basil, oregano, some garlic, a little red pepper, a couple jalapenos, red onion, some ground beef, a little bit of red wine, some dried spaghetti, and some chopped up tomatoes. All right, so let's get cooking. First thing I'm going to do is work on my marinara sauce. I'm going to do this separately from the meat. I think it comes out a little bit better that way, especially when I'm using fresh tomatoes because I have to let the sauce cook so long. Um, if you cook your meat separately and then combine it with the finished marinara sauce, the meat doesn't get overcooked quite as much. So I'm going to cook the marinara sauce, let it cook down for a couple hours, and then I'll cook the meat when I go to boil my water for the pasta, and then we'll combine it all. First thing I'm going to do is heat up some olive oil in my pan. All right, so once my olive oil is heated up, I'm going to add my onions and the red pepper and the jalapenos to saute. I'll hold off on the garlic for now, let the onions kind of cook through, and then I'll add that garlic so it doesn't burn. So I hope the onions and stuff sweat down a little. I'm going to add like a quarter teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to add a couple of twists of black pepper. So you want to kind of cook the onions down about 5 minutes or so until they start to get translucent. Now I'm going to add my garlic and cook them both for a couple more minutes. You want to keep it on your temperature. Since you're cooking the onions for a little while, you don't want them to burn, so kind of a medium-low heat. All right, so the onions are starting to get a little more translucent now. I'm going to add my garlic in. And the garlic only takes a minute or two to cook. While that cooks the last little bit, I'm going to toss in a little bit of the fresh oregano and basil. I'm just going to give that the briefest kind of saute, like 30 seconds if that even. And that'll kind of let the oil soak up some of the essential oils. And I'm going to deglaze that with some red wine. And we'll let the red wine kind of come to a simmer and cook off the alcohol. Now, the use of wine and alcohol in cooking like this is kind of interesting. You're kind of doing an extraction with the alcohol. It helps extract some of those essential oils and stuff from the greens and the herbs and soak them out into the sauce. And then the alcohol kind of evaporates off, but all those oils are then in the sauce. So once that wine is reduced down, I'm going to add in my tomatoes and the rest of the herbs. Then I'm going to add one of those wine bottles worth of water, and that water will kind of boil and help the tomatoes cook down, spread that heat out around among them so they're all cooking. And I'm going to turn my heat back up for a minute just while I let this come to a kind of a simmer, and then I'll turn it back down again. And it looks like a lot of tomatoes now, but these are all going to cook down and all that juice is going to cook out of them. And it's mostly just going to turn into a sauce after a few hours of cooking. So once it's first coming to a simmer, stir it to spread that heat around. And you can already see just in a couple of minutes the tomatoes have cooked down a bunch from when I first put them in. And there's a lot more liquid. A lot of that liquid will boil off and just concentrate into flavor. And for the first 10 minutes or so that it's simmering, I'll have to keep an eye on it, just make sure it's not simmering over, get the heat about right. And then I'll put a lid on it and let it cook. So once it starts boiling pretty good, I have to turn it down to where it's just kind of at a simmer. Now when you make a marinara sauce like this from fresh tomatoes, it's so good, but it takes quite a while. You gotta really let it cook for at least 2 hours, probably more like 3 before it flavors all the way converted. Basically, you just want to check on it maybe every half hour or so, kind of stir it down, check on the progress. If it needs a little more liquid, you can add some. I'm going to put a lid on it. That'll kind of help keep the moisture in so you're not losing as much steam. Hey, so I'm back now after a few hours to check on how our sauce is doing. It's actually been about 2.5 hours now. I checked on this about every half hour or 45 minutes as it's been cooking and added some more water to it. Probably added about a cup of water to it altogether. And this is looking delicious now. Actually tastes delicious now too. I tried a little bit. I'm going to add a bit more red wine to it, another half cup or so. So we'll keep letting this simmer down. I'm going to leave the lid off it now so it actually reduces some. It's a little more watery than I would like. So if I was going to make this vegetarian, this would be done. That's all I'd need to do. But I'm going to make this a meat sauce. So I'm going to let this keep simmering on the back burner for a little bit. So my pan's nice and hot now. I'm going to add my meat. Alright, so once our meat's in the pan, kind of broken up a little, I'm going to season it with a little salt, some garlic powder, some black pepper, some dried basil, some dried oregano. Get that all mixed in and break this up a little bit more. I can drain some of this grease off. You can see it's quite a bit that's cooked out of the meat. Now that my hamburger is pretty much cooked, I'm going to add it to the rest of the sauce here. Let those flavors combine for a minute. Alright, so we'll add the hamburger to the marinara sauce. Alright, so let's just let that simmer down for a little bit longer while the pasta cooks. So I've got a big pot of water here that's almost boiling. It's not quite there yet. The water's at a good boil. I'm going to add my spaghetti. You want to make sure you stir it a bunch as it softens at the beginning so it doesn't all clump together. One thing that helps keep the water from boiling over is a little bit of oil. Doesn't really help the pasta not stick together, but it helps keep the water from getting all foamy from the starch. Yeah, the only thing that really keeps the pasta from clumping is stirring it. Alright, I think my pasta's getting close to done now. You can kind of tell from how it's boiling, like you see the pasta's floating up to the surface more now on its own without being stirred. Like that's a good sign that it's pretty close to done. And try a piece. Yeah, it's really close. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Alright, so my pasta's done. I'm going to bring it over here to the sink to drain. And put it into a bowl that I can easily put in the fridge with the lid. So my sauce is thickened up nicely and it's all cooked down now. I'm going to add it to a bowl too. Alright, so there you have it. We've got our spaghetti and we've got our tomato meat sauce. I'm about to serve this up and eat.